Hello, hello, and welcome to Paranormal. More normal than we think. I'm joined today with Mitch. He's got an experience that he'd like to tell us. Take it away, Mitch.
I had an experience about 20 odd years ago when I was about 6 or 7. Can't really remember the exact date anymore, but me and my mother were driving home in a very rural area in Australia, right out in the middle of the bush. And we saw a long, elongated cigar looking object with windows down the side of it, and honestly just thought it was a plane when we first saw it. It kind of started moving a little strangely as we were driving, not in a forward motion as you would expect a plane to do, and we started watching it, and it was getting closer and closer and closer. So my mother freaked out a little bit and started speeding all the way home, as you would, thinking that maybe something is coming to the ground,
Oh, hell
even
yeah.
if it were a plane. Yeah, really quite a worrying situation. So she booked it the rest of the way home, about 3 or 4 kilometers, while this thing kept just like following us along while being in front of us, very strangely. And then it sort of just disappeared but under the tree line as we were coming over the hills into the valley where we lived. And she rammed up our driveway at about 100 mile an hour. It was the dirt driveway. It was pretty scary. And we pulled up and we hopped out of the car and we could just hear this really low-pitched hum from above us, and we both looked up and it was like eclipsing the entire sky. It was already right above our house, directly above us, and we shat ourselves.
I could imagine. I would too.
Yeah. I've pointed up being a little kid and gone, "Mommy, look!"
How close was it? Like, from like the ground to the sky? Like, how close would you say it was?
Well, 50 meters. It's like like 100 and something foot, like 150 footish.
Good lord, that is close.
Yeah, and it was a really big ship too. Like it eclipsed the whole sky. Uh, yeah, well, as we've looked up and I've alerted my mother to the UFO, she's frantically tried to unlock our front door while I'm still just staring up at this thing. The next thing I know, she's grabbed my arm and ripped me inside, closed the door, locked it, pulled down all the blinds, shut off the lights, gone full bomb shelter mode, and we hid under the table.
Damn.
Yeah, by this point, by the time we were even getting under the table, the low hum had become like a really loud noise. Then it just got getting louder and louder and louder. The lights outside became so bright that it looked like blue daylight shining through the cracks of the blinds. It got louder and louder, like a really low-pitched jet engine winding up. And then it just went pew,
Just
and the light
rocketed
was
off.
gone simultaneously. Yeah, no, like bang, just like a freaking sci-fi laser noise. It literally just disappeared with nothing.
Good God. Every experiencer story, it gives me chills. And for that, it just blows my mind. If it takes off at, even Mach 1, it's going to break the sound barrier, I'm pretty sure. And with it doing
I'd
that,
really love to talk about that as well, because I'm being that we went inside, I can't confirm whether it did really shoot off. I have an alternate theory that might pique your interest.
absolutely, I want to hear it.
Well, this thing was really freaking loud. Like, it shook the whole house. The windows were, like, really shaking. We were certain they were going to smash. Like, the whole house was literally about to fall apart by how loud this was. When it shot off, we were deafened. Like, we could barely hear each other talk. I wonder if it may have had some sort of sonic stealth, because when we first hopped out of the car, it was only like 150 foot above us, and a low hum, barely making a noise. And yet, when it began to lower itself down towards us, it's gotten louder and louder and louder and louder. what if all of that noise was it just revving up its engines a little bit and moving back away from us? And once we've passed that threshold, it sounded like it's just turned off.
Well, let me ask.
Almost like an envelope of silence around it.
Let me ask you this. So, for everyone, I'm sure y'all have noticed he's from Australia. So, I have a question. Y'all aren't allowed to have guns in Australia. Like, is that commonplace? I don't know the laws there.
No, we're allowed to have guns.
Oh, all right.
I have a Keegan, man.
Cool. Do you know much about guns?
Yeah, a little bit.
All right. I think I took this out of my other video too. In my past video, I was talking about how all these experiencers say that these craft, they take off and they don't make a sound, and they go faster than the speed of sound. So you would imagine it would break the sound barrier, causing that explosion sound. So
yeah, presumably.
In movies, when you see, John Wick put on a suppressor, I'm sure everyone's seen John Wick. There's a part where they're in the airport. There's two dudes, and the airport's full. They're shooting these suppressed pistols at each other, and not anyone, like no one, is making a sound. No one's trying to run. No one's scared for their lives. Well, here's the problem with that. So even with a suppressor,
it's still supersonic. It's still breaking the sound, brother.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's gonna hurt.
Yes. Now, even if you load with subsonic rounds, which my gun nerds know, that's of course obvious, it's subsonic, so it's not going to break the sound barrier. But the problem with that scene is there's still going to be a shit ton of gas coming out of that suppressor. So yeah, someone's going to know.
Explosion. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, someone's going to know. There's no way to completely kill breaking the sound barrier. So what I wanted to tell you is, with a suppressor, it's got baffles, concave little spots in the suppressor that collect the sound and just dampens it.
Yeah, it lets the gas sort of expand into there instead of outside of the barrel, which sort of traps the sound within it.
Correct.
Yeah.
So with your theory, what would have been the sound suppression for that? What would be the silencer for the UFO? Do you have a theory?
Hypothetically, this UFO may not have been accelerating faster than the speed of sound, but just silencing the sound of its engines and going under the speed of sound, maybe close to it. It may not have actually shot off. It may have just slowly moved away from us, and we've gone outside of this little bubble. The idea for that is the same idea for active noise cancellation headphones, basically. You can record a sound and play out the opposite amplitude waves and cancel out the sound.
That's interesting. I've never looked into audio science like that. I don't know much about audio stuff, so I find that fascinating. I find so Mitch was telling me before we started, he likes to view things in scientific standpoints and stuff like that. Y'all know I'm insane, so I like to speculate. So we're gonna kind of back and forth. I guess don't judge on my craziness or his level-headedness when we start getting into this. But my question, when I was about the same age, maybe a little older, I went to my brother's house, or my brother's friend's house, with him and my sister. I was laying on the trampoline outside. There was nobody out there. This is rural Alabama, in the most rural sense that Alabama can be. There's woods all around me.
Seems to be an attraction to those rural areas somewhat, hey?
It really does. It really does. I could go outside right now if it wasn't cloudy, and I could probably shoot a UFO. They're constant out here. It's insane.
Wow.
Except they don't do... Let me preface that. They're not like your experience. You know the photo I sent you?
No, of course not. Yeah, no, I understand.
That's the majority of it. It's just stars acting weird. Stars acting the way they shouldn't.
Again, I should preference, I've never seen anything before or again. It's just that one time for me. Never been lucky enough to see much else.
If you live in the South, I do want to ask y'all to do this. Go outside for 30 minutes. I've asked y'all this once before, but I'm asking again. And just look at the sky for 30 minutes. Make sure you bundle up because it's freezing. But look at the sky for 30 minutes. And when you come back in, I promise you'll see something that you can't explain. But back to what I was saying. So I'm a 6 or 7 year old, maybe a little older, maybe 8 or 9, little kid, and I'm laying with my back on the trampoline. We had just got done jumping. Of course, I'm exhausted. My friends went in. I was just laying there. So this memory hit me, I'd say about 4 or 5 months ago, and I think it could be a fake memory. It could be real, but regardless, I'm laying there on my back, and this triangle, not really a triangle, it's more of a boomerang shaped, but instead of the curve, it's a V. A V-shaped craft started to fly over. And whenever I say fly over, I mean exactly what Mitch said. You could shoot it with a paintball gun. It was that close to the ground. And it was, I'm talking, it was football fields, many, probably 5 or 6 football fields wide, long and wide. And
Wow.
yeah, and I can remember so vividly the exterior. I couldn't see the side of it. I could only see underneath. There were these. It's kind of like the Death Star. You know when they zoom in on the Death Star, how it's all these structures and whatnot.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, so yeah,
A mechanical surface.
yeah, very. It's not
Almost.
smooth.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was pretty jagged. I didn't see turrets or anything. I just saw a bunch of weird just formations, and I didn't stand up. I didn't do nothing. I just laid there and watched, and it didn't stop. It didn't seem to shine a beam on me, and nothing. At this point, at this time of me remembering it, I don't think there were lights. And next thing I know, I didn't see it shoot off. I didn't see it disappear. It's just gone. Like, the remainder from that point of me seeing this craft until probably middle school, there's no memory in my head. I could have died for all I know. It's just gone. What would you think that was? Do you have a theory?
Well, I do the same thing as you and half ignore it. But honestly, I've asked my own mother so many times whether she's certain that it was the same time after we got home. Because after the event, we've hidden under the table for about another hour and then gone to bed. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning. She was driving home from a night shift. So I really don't know if we lost any time either. And it's a scary thought, huh?
Yeah. Okay. It was dry. For me, it was in the evening time. During the summer would be about 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I'm just seeing if they're related at all, because you're 27, I'm 27. We both
Very
saw
bizarre.
these. Yeah, we both saw these about the same time. Well, so that was
Absolutely.
the only experience you had. And did you say your mom just, have you asked her any more about what she thought about it since you've gotten older?
She's convinced that it's a government black project.
Ah, like the TR3B type deal.
Yep.
Ah. Well,
I'm less convinced, but I am open to the possibility that it could be human-made. It did certainly sound like a jet engine.
I've got 2 reasons why I'm very skeptical on it being a. Well, I've got 1 reason.
Oh, I have many reasons. Lots of it didn't make sense. Why the hell would a human pilot do that? Like,
This topic don't make
Don't
sense,
get me wrong.
man. I'll be completely honest. None of it does.
no.
So I've
No,
heard a
I'm
lot
trying to
of
make sense out of nothing.
exactly, and that's something for everybody. For everybody that comes on my show, for everyone who don't, there's no answer. That's why I love to speculate.
I'm all about the speculation too. It's good fun, and also you should be thinking about other possible answers,
Especially with
especially when we can't know the answer.
that and the speculation that's based on scientific fact.
Yeah, well, that's up until very recently. It's always been a big problem of mine. The only thing that I've been able to really trust has been my own personal experience, just because of the way that I think. Sort of limited the amount that I could think about the whole topic, but I've always been really interested in the idea of interstellar galactic civilizations, and think it's pretty likely that there's at least, a couple of multi-stellar civilizations nearby-ish.
Oh, I
And,
agree.
our planet's certainly had biosignatures for like 3 billion years now, since plants started pumping oxygen out. So, that's a long time for their telescopes to be able to see a little bit of oxygen on our planet.
That is a long time. And
Yeah.
how true is it? I mean, it could have been even further back. Like, so the super deep borehole in Russia?
Yeah.
So I like to bring this up a lot because it's very interesting. If you take a look at the map, like let's say a slice of the world, like if you cut the world in half, and you compare the super deep borehole to how deep the core is and whatnot, it's you almost can't see the borehole at all. It's almost
No, it's not.
yeah. And so how do we know that beneath the crust is the mantle? Like, how do we know that? And I'm sure there's reasons and stuff.
Yeah.
But
yeah, compression physics, I guess, like the same thing, but gas, on a far larger scale. It's Earth is rock has been compressed to the point where it's so excited that it's turned to magma.
right. And now,
Actually, an interesting fact about the borehole is that they had to stop digging because the Earth became so plastic that the drills would be stuck. It was like drilling into like hardened Play-Doh.
yeah, I was telling my mom that earlier before we started this interview because I wanted to posit to you, since you're a very scientific thinking person, what if, so when they did these studies about there being a mantle underneath the crust, what if they did these studies in a section that there was a mantle, and if they would have been into like a different continent and did this test, what if there wasn't a mantle? What if there are places in the Mariana Trench that we haven't gotten to, that maybe there's a tunnel up under the crust and
Another earthly bound civilization.
right, like Lou Elizondo said, that there could be ETs that aren't really extraterrestrial, they're just ultra terrestrial, they're underneath the earth. And that's wild to think about. Imagine a civilization that has a
I've considered it actually before. It's an amazing thing to think about.
yeah, like the earth is
I-
what, how many billions of years old is the earth?
What would you think they would be? Because I've thought about it a lot, and I tend to lean towards it being just another group of humans, or at least hominids.
Well, honestly, I think
If
you're
that
right.
were to be the case, yeah.
If that were to be the case, I think a very hominid type body structure. I think the skin would be extremely pale. There'd be no reason to have pigment. Eyes would be incredibly primitive unless they were smart enough in their technologies to do their own enhancements. And then who's to say their skin isn't pigment oriented? Who's to say that they don't have a suit that gives their skin pigment when they decide to go above Earth to stop from burning to death in the sun's ultraviolet rays? There's many things it could be. Let me.
It's very hard to say that humans were the first ones to discover fire either, though.
I just don't think we were. I don't.
Well, there's good evidence to suggest we stole it from Neanderthals anyway, actually. Humanity, Neanderthals, and our predecessors, sort of like a million-ish, the same sort of thing.
The first civilization was the Samaritan, 3000 BC, right? So that's before.
The Sumerians and the Egyptians are right about the same time.
Right. So what happened before that? Where were we before that? What were we doing before that? And then
Not a lot.
apparently. Well,
But that's just our story alone. I feel like there's definitely room in a story for a lost hominid in a cave that never came out.
I agree. A lost hominid in a cave who found a different exit.
Well, like a lava tunnel rather than a cave. Yeah.
Right. And let's posit that this happened billions of years ago. Let's say when
Or 5 million,
yeah, let's
It's that's still like our civilization again. Yeah, we were just talking about it. It's only 6,000 years old.
yep. And so for imagine 5
If
billion.
you include like everything.
Or 5 million, my bad.
Even just in the millions, where it's a preposterous amount of time ahead of us.
Tell me that species wouldn't have a transmedium craft. I mean, surely.
Precisely. Or any other kind of technology.
Exactly. Imagine that's one species that all these people are seeing. And there's so many more that people claim to see. And take each experiencer at your value. What you saw, happened. Imagine if you opened your mind and looked at every experiencer as though they were telling their truth,
I always try to at least explain it in their truth as well, at least once in my mind, just to contemplate the possibilities,
that what if
it's
feeling.
Definitely beneficial.
See, that's a part of being an empath too. You can put yourself in their shoes and imagine what would it be like if this was real.
Yeah, it's just a bit of empathy, I suppose. Yeah. From having the same sort of experience and having also very few people believe you, it's easy to understand where they're coming from. When they're like, yeah, well, it's crazy. I understand that you don't believe me because I'm telling you something absolutely insane.
Exactly. Exactly. Like, who was it? So, Anchor Dog, one of my other guests, he has some very wild experiences that are just, they're out there, man. They are out there. But do I ever listen to them and say, no, you're lying? No, you're wrong. No, you didn't hear that. No, because I don't know.
I think 99% of people who have reports at least believe it themselves. I don't think many people are lying.
I agree. At least they're telling themselves a truth. Now, there are people that can lie to themselves.
And accidentally, subconsciously even.
Yeah, and for...
It happens to... I've questioned my own sanity many a time.
You and me both, buddy. You and me both. So, with all the news of, UFOs, at least in my country, UFOs becoming a normal type deal, I feel like the United States are leading a charge in disclosure. These 3 videos that the Pentagon released back in 2019, I think. Have you seen all 3 of those?
I have.
So, with the Tic Tac, I do believe it's the Tic Tac. They say these things come, down to sea level. They rocket off in 2 seconds at 80,000 feet. From sea level to 80,000 feet. So, yes. With those amount of G's, I love to talk about this part. How could, if it wasn't a drone, if it was a live occupant craft, how do you think that they could survive that?
Well, I've actually done the calculation on it, and
I would love to hear it.
Out, it's just beyond the limits of steel. So,
oh my god! Can you tell me how many G's? How many
steel
G's
becomes
is that?
a pancake. It's several hundred G's. It's not okay.
It's not okay.
From an engineering perspective, it's just not an okay thing.
Golly. Humans lose consciousness at 5 G's. I'm pretty sure. I think that's what I looked up. And at 9 G's, I think they sustain damage. So could you imagine?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's just a preposterous, even to contemplate that amount of G-force on any structure.
Let alone
Let
alone the strongest material we have.
That some of the stuff that the US is encountering in the Navy space and airspace is got to be extraterrestrial. There doesn't really seem to be any other explanation. There's no way another human civilization has outpaced us by that much.
I agree. I agree.
There's just no way.
Now, take a look at it like this, though. So, there's a lot of people that say, we landed on the moon in the 20s or something like that. It was a long time ago, but it wasn't drastically long. Even from the 20s until now, I still don't think we'd have...
The power of a calculator.
Do what?
On the power of a calculator.
Yeah.
The computers in the first programs were less powerful than, like, a basic calculator.
Yeah, the cell phones we have are multiple times, more sophisticated. And that's a cell phone.
Yeah, more sophisticated than mission control, let alone the capsules.
Right, but you could take a cinder block to calculators back then and to phones now, and they both break. There's nothing you can do that will stop that many G's, unless
Yeah, no, exactly. There's a certain level of progress that's like, yeah, no, you're either messing with quantum physics and all sorts of things, or you were crushing steel.
that's where I feel quantum physics come in. I believe
Yeah.
that quantum physics and the whole ET phenomenon, they correlate. I believe that
Well, we're
maybe,
not there yet, that's for sure.
yeah, we can't even make a quantum computer.
Like, yeah, exactly. We really don't have the capability, and no military on Earth does. It's if these things are truly traveling from sea level to 80,000 feet in a couple of seconds, if not instantaneously, then they are not using conventional physics.
There's no way. There's no way they can. I mean, there's no way.
No, it's physically impossible.
And I feel like there could have been, back in Roswell, there could have been a crash, which there was, of course. There could have been recovered materials, which there were. They could have tried to crack it, and I don't think they did.
There's not a hope in hell that we could have cracked alien technology.
No.
Our physics is so base level. It's we barely understand what is holding the universe together. What the hell is dark matter?
You make a good point.
We have no idea what it is. It's 60% of the mass in the universe. Like, what the f is going on?
It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And then on
Excuse my
top of that,
French.
so to go back on the hundreds of thousands of G's top deal, there's only one thing that I can think of that would shield you or shield any, human, animal, biological body from such crushing just force. It would have to be some kind of liquid, in my head. And I'm not a scientist. But
I've actually thought a similar thing, actually.
like, imagine, let me ask you this. So in my head, there's a box, you fill that box completely to the brim with no air bubbles, just liquid, put yourself inside that box, and as long as the outside's safe, from any kind of G, the inside should be completely fine. What would you...
No, you're still subject to the G-forces in that manner.
So
but-
even if you're in the water, you're subject to it?
Yeah, but that's only for a living organism. I suspect if these craft are not using some sort of warp drive and they are physically ripping through the atmosphere at that kind of speed, that it would have to be a liquid, but a liquid metal. And likely a liquid metal blimp almost. So a magnetic field could suspend a sheet of liquid metal, and then you could pump out the air and have a vacuum blimp.
Kind of like Kevlar.
For a drone. Yeah, it would be preposterously energy expensive, but if they are aliens, then that's not outside of the realm of possibility. Some magnetic fields are so powerful that they can lift hundreds of tons of matter off the surface of the sun. If you had enough energy, you could totally make a little bubble of metal.
All right, so
A lot of energy.
So
A lot more than we have.
have you been keeping up with the fusion progress?
Yeah, with our tokamaks and whatnot.
Yeah. Did you see the most recent amount that how many megajoules we were able to put out?
Yeah, it was pretty piddly.
Yeah, it was piddly. But have you looked at the graph? The graph.
It worked. It worked. That's the thing that matters.
Yes. Let me send you this.
It is. We are getting positive results now. With slightly more energy than we put in. That is the goal. Theoretically, if the tokamak were to be made big enough, we were already there in terms of making it work, but won't be long, I hope. It's always that endeavor that's like, yeah, in the next 10 years.
So, if you look from 2011 to 2021, the amount of forward progress we made in just the year 2021 alone is outstanding. And then if you take into calculation how many people have lost their jobs, how many people quit, how many people got sick from COVID, all that good stuff, that graph starts to make mean a little more. I mean, it may have been just 1.3 megajoules, I think, but that is a shit ton compared to 2020. 2020, you
Yeah,
are
absolutely.
what? I would say an
All the
8.
negative numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, and so if we can do that, then now I'm not trying to create a platform for me to say that humans are flying these craft around, but I like to venture all
But
avenues.
it's possible.
Yes, it is possible if you speculate.
Again, as I said, if they aren't using any kind of warp engine. If they are, anything's fucking possible.
Now,
Oh,
going
gosh.
back to
I'm
that.
gonna have to beat myself so many times.
Oh, you're good, man. You're good. I'm not doing the work, so you're totally good. No, but so the warp drive theory, I love that. I love to think about that. That's more interesting to me than anything. What what is your
Absolutely.
thoughts on the warp drive? I want to hear everything you can think of about that. Just
Well, I have a pet theory,
pet theory.
but I mean, I certainly don't take it with all of the grains of salt.
Ah,
Uh, but I have a pet theory that dark matter might not be a positive. It might not be like a pulling gravity force like the rest of matter that we see. I have a sneaking suspicion that it might just be a negative mass particle that is hiding in the void and hates other particles, and it's pushing all of the other mass together into the strings that we see in the cosmic web, rather than having extra dark matter in the cosmic web. And if that is the case, maybe a civilization could harness this negative density matter, and therefore a warp drive is very, very possible,
all right.
and not nearly as energy, like doesn't need nearly as much energy as you would imagine if negative matter exists, negative density matter exists.
All right. Let's say it does. Let's say we figured out that.
But again,
Well, let's
that,
just.
I like that theory because it enables warp drives. Let's be honest, I'm biased.
I can understand that completely. I can. But people say, these
It's called
crafts.
dark fluid theory, if anyone wanted to look it up. Sorry, go on.
I do. I want to write that down. Say that one more time. Dark.
Fluid, or energy mass fluid, negative density energy mass fluid theory. There's a bunch of different names for it, I suppose. There's many different papers that have proposed similar things.
Well, somebody was
But
talking about the falling theory as a mode of transportation, and I didn't write down the website from that, and alas, I can't find it anymore. So I can't even understand what the falling theory is. So yeah, I like to research any and everything you ask or anyone asked me to. It's fascinating. But to go back to the theory of how they move and whatnot. So let's say that you're correct. Let's say there is a particle that hates being around, other particles. Let's say they did find a way to harness it and use it. So what would protect them from going 80,000 miles an hour, 100 billion thousand miles an hour, whatever, and then crashing into the ocean? Like, what stops them from, exploding on impact? Because you can fall from, 30 feet and your legs are broken, or 90 feet, something like that, into water. So
I would suspect that they never really turn off the warp bubble and just stay within a warped bubble of space-time perpetually.
It would create a bubble around the ship.
Well, yeah, much like the one that NASA designed. If we had negative mass, we could totally build this stuff too. We just don't have negative mass anything.
Dang. That's... Oh, I see.
If it happens to exist and we just don't have any on Earth, then that would be very unfortunate for us. Other races might be able to find it relatively nearby. Galileo was speculating when he tried to figure out whether we actually were not the center of the universe. So, progress has to be made. Humans are pretty dumb.
Back to your experience. You said it had windows.
It did.
Were these windows just to look out of, or do you think there was something else entirely?
They say windows. They were square yellow structures on the side of the craft, of the cigar-shaped craft from a distance. Looked like almost like the body of a plane without wings.
The craft looked like a body of the plane without wings?
Yeah, from the side, from a
Okay.
distance.
I thought you meant the windows did. I was like, that's weird. Huh.
Yeah, so like, yeah, little yellow windows along it.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I wonder why they're yellow.
I can't even confirm that they're really windows. They might be lights. I never saw any entities in the windows or anything of the sort, but it certainly had what looked like windows. We should all share information amongst each other. That's how we learn and grow.
No matter how crazy it sounds. Like, honestly.
Exactly.
That's the whole reason this show's here. Hell, people thought Isaac Newton. They thought he was crazy,
Yes.
and clearly he's not.
And there are plenty of smart people who are just uneducated. There is a clear difference between someone who has lack of access to education and someone who is actually unintelligent.
I agree. I agree. Hell, NASA is in our state. NASA is in North Alabama.
Precisely. I have no doubt that the smartest person who ever lived probably died in like a rice field, making the best rice anyone had ever seen, but living an otherwise unremarkable life.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful.
Yeah, no. The ones that succeed are very lucky and rich, usually.
Agreed. As I told you, I didn't get a laptop till this year, and with that, literally opened up a world for me. A whole world I didn't know existed. Like,
For a lot of people, yeah, there's those sort of barriers, and it's like, how do you make money without money? It's not fair. It's not a fair world that we live in.
yep. I'm just
But,
for
yeah.
the UFO portion of the whole shebang. You live in a wonderful spot because it's rural, and I just wonder, have you looked? Have you taken time to go outside and see if you can see that craft again or anything?
Yeah, never seen anything ever again. I've always kept one eye on the sky, but no, just the one time.
Well, I reckon we ought to wrap this up since we're getting pretty far along.
Yep.
Do you have any closing statements? Anything you'd like to add to my listeners or just to me?
Not particularly. Not that I can think of. No.
All right.
I hope everyone has a good day or
And
night or whatever their time zone is, because we're in radically different time zones.
yeah, you are ridiculously far ahead of me.
Yes.
For the States listeners, this is recorded on Thanksgiving, so, happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving to all of the people in the United States. I didn't even know that. See.
Look at you being all sweet. Anyways, so yeah, thank you, Mitch, for joining us, and hopefully you will join us again. Until, further notice, I appreciate y'all coming along. Like I always say, though, y'all have a good one.